Imagine you paid a rather generous amount of money to reserve seats at a theatre featuring a play, and the first person to walk up to the stage pulls out a script and starts reading from it. Sans intonation and emotion, and this continues till the end of the play. People come to the stage and they read from scripts, and they read at such an alarmingly rapid pace that it feels as though they glimpsed some maniac from the audience running at them with a chainsaw, and they know that everybody in the audience is going to be mutilated, them included, and they have barely seconds between attempting to dodge the chainsaw and finish what they are reading because they must not shrink from the task at hand, as if their life depends on it. Now, I'm sure that you must relate to this, since as a student you have to have had Shakespeare read out to you in a similar way at some point in your life, I'm sad to say. Why is it that every single time someone mentions Shakespeare or anything nearing a semblance of theatre bound drama, people contort their faces, some in disappointment and some in absolute mortal peril? Why is it that people shrink from art that was created solely for the masses, for them? Now, as you know, most of us are visual learners and consequently the most visually stimulated, and that is precisely what theatre is for. It lights a fire to the fuse that is our nerves and sometimes causes explosions if done well. Theatre was never meant to be arcane, understood only by those with a bunch and clump of grey hair on their head who have spent the entirety of their lives trying to swallow dictionaries whole. It was supposed to be experienced at a very base level, and it's not in most educational institutions. My friends, they take the help of guidebooks to learn Shakespeare, which, of course, don't get me wrong, they do a wonderful job at drawing out the essence of language and literature and drama with their half-hearted explanations, and some of them degraded down to the status of howlers. If you were fortunate enough to get a physics teacher, suppose, who actually knows how to teach, you would see regular visual demonstrations of the concepts taught in class. And that indubitably makes the class far more interesting and engaging than what you usually come across. I have seldom seen drama taught that way, when it's supposed to be taught that way. If murder had never been criminalized as an act since the dawn of time, it would be as quotidian as having bread and butter for breakfast every day, people murdering others left, right, and center. It is, similarly, what a person has been taught for a majority of their childhoods about a certain thing is what they will retain for the rest of their lives. And so is the case with Shakespeare in general. If Shakespeare really was that erudite and exalted from pedestrian reach, how do you explain to me the popularity of shows such as Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, 10 Things I Hate About You, or The Lion King, which was, I'm sure you didn't know, was directly lifted from Shakespeare's Hamlet? How would you explain to me the commercial success of Bollywood films such as Omkara, Maqbul, Haider, Agnipath? If you have caught yourself using phrases such as green-eyed jealousy or been hoodwinked or found yourself tongue-tied, who do you think you've been quoting? Why, Shakespeare, of course. We have an artist in all of us. We just fail to cultivate that side of ourselves because art has always been dismissed as either unnecessary, superfluous, too hard to understand, or a backup for people who are not too sharp for science. To quote from the Evergreen Dead Poets Society, we do not read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are a part of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. Of course, law, business, medicine, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, love, beauty, romance, these are what we live for. To quote Walt Whitman, "Oh me, oh life," of these recurring of these questions, of these endless trains of the faithless, of these cities filled with the foolish. What good amid these? O me, O life. The answer? That you are here. And life exists. An identity. And the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be? And I ask, what will our verse be? Will we as individuals grow into having understood drama, poetry, and enjoyed literature? Would we understand human life, society, politics, philosophy, culture? Would we know what they truly meant when they said, "The pen is mightier than the sword"? Would we appreciate words for the true power that they hold? Because words make and break relationships, kingdoms, truces, treaties. They incite the most grotesque form of violence, and they inspire the most despairing minds, and they also soothe the most unsettled hearts. Words are the most potent destroyers, and they are the most proficient healers. Words brand revolutions into existence as you shout from the rooftops, "Viva la resistencia!" Long live the resistance. It's sacrilege to teach all of that I just mentioned without the emotions that fuel the speeches. If all of that had forever been confined within rooms of esotericity and scholars sporting PhDs, they would never have seen the commercial success that they did on the silver screen when lived by famous actors. I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but that is exactly why we should be stressing less on what individual words mean and more on what the bigger picture is that the drama paints. We should be asking lesser questions about the meaning of a certain paragraph in the specific context of a play, and more about the life lessons that it teaches you. I'm sure people will relate more to situations that they have faced in life before as compared to a world that they have never lived in themselves. Art is what we turn to when we are saddest. Art is what we turn to when we are the happiest. People should not be stripped of the ability to enjoy art just because they are not learned enough or don't have degrees to prove that they are connoisseurs of it. Let a human being appreciate or fancy a piece of poetry, a piece of prose, or a painting that they admire just because it looks pretty. It's criminal to make something elite which was never meant to be elite in the first place. And I will tell you exactly what I mean with this speech, Macbeth, that Sir Ian McKellen acted out on stage. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which I now draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use, mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses. Whereas worth all the rest, I see thee still, and on thy blade dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There is no such thing. It is the bloody business that informs mine eyes. Now over the 1/2 word, nature seems dread, and wicked dreams abuse. The guardians sleep, witchcraft celebrates Balak its offerings. And withered martyr, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf whose howls is watched thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design. moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabouts, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whiles I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. Now, if you have never been able to experience this intense conflict between murderous ambition and despairing conscience, then the question isn't whether we are able to appreciate theatre or we do appreciate theatre. It changes to simply, are we educated? Thank you.